Good evening and welcome to a new episode of What the Friday. It's been a really good week for me. Nothing great big major has happened, but nothing really bad happened either, so I count that as a good week. The kids were out of school on Monday, so I had Jax and we had a really good time. And I'm loving that he's into Scooby-Doo now. Like, who knows, maybe we have another mystery lover in the making for our family. Now, I need to give a couple of shout outs again before we get started. I don't know if you guys follow us on social media, but if you do, you know that I have a new hair color. Well, it's new for this year. It's similar to a color that I did last year, and I was kind of missing it. But the fabulous Dustin over at Salon Co-op in Union, he did some magic for me on Tuesday, and I'm in love with it, y'all. Go check out our Facebook and our Twitter if you haven't already. Oh, and Instagram too. The other shout out that I need to do is for Safe Light. You know, the windshield people. On Thursday, they came out and put in a new, I call it her new face on Luna. She had this crack in the windshield all the way across the bottom of it. And then all of a sudden it started coming up the driver's side. So I was like, this has got to go. Plus it was filthy, and it's not from a lack of trying to clean it. It was like there was these smudge smeared something. And it was almost like it was in between. Like, because I would clean from the inside and the outside of the car, but they weren't going nowhere. So anyway. And I didn't realize how bad that windshield was until I drove it after he put it in. And I was like, man, you could, like, I should have did this a while back, you know. But it was so clean and so clear that it was almost like there wasn't glass in it at all. Okay. But I just had to give them a big old shout out. Well, did y'all notice that on last week's episode of What the Friday, that it actually went out that morning, and I didn't mean for it to, but when I scheduled it to post, I forgot to switch the AM to PM, because I'm so used to doing our shows for morning, and I've been doing What the Friday for a while, but I don't know, I guess it just slipped my mind. But y'all, this is how I am as a person. And after I saw that it had already published that morning, I was like, you know what, I think by now they just know I'm crazy, so I'm just going to let it be. Now, if you hear background noise that sounds like something scooting or somebody going crazy in the background, that's Stevie, okay? She's got some Mardi Gras beads that she's been chasing all night, and they've made their way into here with them. And see, there she goes. I had to talk about her. But anyway, that's what's going on in the background. Hopefully I can edit most of it out. But yeah, that's how Stevie is as a cat. But anyway, so on to tonight's episode. We're going to be talking about a mysterious disappearance that happened 20 years ago to a mom and her young daughter in Missouri. The story is sad and somewhat disturbing. So please listen at your own discretion.
Welcome to What the Friday, an After Dark series presented by Mystery, Murder, and Magic. Listening discretion is advised.
It was a February afternoon in 2002. The day had been ordinary, or at least it had been until Frances Friedrich stopped by the home of her daughter and granddaughter for a visit. When Mrs. Friedrichs arrived around 5 that afternoon, she found that neither her daughter Janice or her 8-year-old granddaughter Alyssa were nowhere to be found. And oddly enough, Alyssa's coat and backpack was laying on the couch like she had just came in from school. It was a bit strange, but Miss Friedrich didn't think a whole lot of it at the time. And she just didn't think it was that alarming, but she left Janice a note saying that She had came by, for a visit, and then she left. Well, about 45 minutes later, a neighbor of Janice's saw that what she believed to be suspicious activity at Janice's house. There were 2 cars parked outside of Janice's home that she didn't recognize, and on the porch she saw a woman and a younger man, and she didn't recognize either of them. Now, 15 minutes later, that same neighbor saw another car parked on the opposite side of the street, and beside it was standing a man that made the neighbor feel uneasy. She knew something just wasn't right. You know how you just get that gut feeling? And her instincts were right, because something was very, very wrong. Janice was a 43-year-old widowed mother who worked very hard to provide for her children. She was a nurse's aide at a nearby nursing home, and she had just finished her shift that day around 2:15 and went home. An hour after Janice left work, her 8-year-old daughter Alyssa was on her way home from school on the bus. Now, she normally would have rode home with her older brother on the bus that day, but he had been dropped off at a babysitter's house. Alyssa's bus driver was the last to see her when she saw Alyssa go through the front door of her home as she pulled away in the bus. After Janice and Alyssa came home from work and school, it was as if they had just both completely vanished into thin air. I mean, what could have happened to Alyssa and Janice in broad daylight? And other than the 2 people in cars that the neighbor saw, no one knew what happened to them. Boonville, Missouri is where our story takes place tonight, and it is in a very big city. Population of people there is only around 8,000 or so, give or take. When news got out that the 2 were missing, there was a lot of speculation about what could have happened to them. And as all towns have them, I'm sure the rumor mills were working overtime. And no matter how many rumors circulated and how much speculation went on, one thing was for sure. The whereabouts of Janice and Alyssa had the authorities puzzled. They really had no leads other than what the neighbor had told them about the suspicious cars and people that had been seen the day they had disappeared. And nothing like this had happened in their area in over 20 years. And investigators from bigger cities were called in, and it was like the local authorities and those big city investigators, they just couldn't make heads or tails of the very little evidence that they had in front of them, which was, like I said, very little. Now, the next morning, 3 employees of a local sawmill were traveling down the road just about 12 miles outside of Boonville when they spotted what they thought was a $1 mannequin laying on the side of the road. But when they pulled over to check it out, they found that it was the lifeless body of a child, and that child turned out to be Alyssa Owen. Well, because Janice was missing also, she became the authorities' prime suspect in the case. I guess they thought that she had killed Alyssa, dumped her body on the side of the road, and took off. But friends of her knew that couldn't be the case. And what motive would Janice have in doing that? They all said that she was the most loving and adoring mother to Alyssa. And the autopsy that soon followed the discovery of Alyssa's body revealed that she had been suffocated. Well, not long after the discovery of Alyssa's body, a sanitation employee came to the police and told him what he had seen. He reported to police that he had seen a vehicle matching one that the neighbor had described on the same road that Alyssa's body had been found on just minutes before the sawmill workers had found her. Apparently it was a green pickup truck, but he couldn't see into the bed of the truck but his instincts were nagging at him that Alyssa's body was in the truck bed at that time. When he passed by the area where Alyssa had been found, her body wasn't there yet, so that leads me to believe that whoever was driving that green truck saw this person's vehicle and decided to wait a few minutes when they thought the coast was clear to dump her body on the side of the road. And it only took a few minutes from the time that the man saw the green truck that morning until Alyssa's body was left on the side of the road, and then just a few more minutes later when the sawmill workers actually found her. So there was only just a few minutes in between all of this happening. Well, that answered some of the questions about what happened to Alyssa, but officials still didn't know who had did this to her. And the big question was where is Janice? For the next 6 weeks, investigators searched for more clues into the case. They went over the evidence that they had again and again, but there still wasn't very much to go on. But then finally, into that 6th week, a big clue was found. Janice's body was discovered about 12 miles from where Alyssa's had been found. While Alyssa had been found in plain sight, Janice's body had been discarded by a remote creek bed. The autopsy revealed that she had died around the same time as Alyssa, and that she had either drowned or was suffocated. Now, where Janice's body was found led investigators to believe that it had to be somebody familiar with the area, because the area that her body was found was very remote. There was like twisting roads that you had to take, and like the path to that creek was kind of hidden, so somebody had to know where they were going. And of course, finding Janice's body ruled out the thought that she was a suspect. So who could have killed this mom and her young daughter? Janice's fiance became a suspect, but his alibi for that day checked out. And then it became known that Janice had talked to some men online. They were also cleared of any wrongdoing. Well, then investigators moved on to pursuing just who those unknown people were that had been on Janice's front porch that day that she and Alyssa had disappeared. I mean, who were these people? Well, 4 months after the Owens disappeared, investigators received a major break in the case. Someone called the police with a tip saying that a coworker of Janice's had information on her murder. That coworker was 25-year-old Angela Mize. When police questioned her, Mize said that her 18-year-old husband, Aaron, had killed Janice and Alyssa, and that she had only witnessed it. But later she confessed to her involvement in the crimes and their deaths. And when authorities searched the Mizes' home, they found some items that had belonged to Alyssa. A button from her dress that was missing, and the buckles from her shoes. Now, had they came off in a struggle, or had the killers kept them as a trophy? We may never know the answer to that, but it was some pretty damning evidence. But the reason that they killed Alyssa and Janice was the most horrifying that some of the investigators had ever heard or experienced. The couple admitted to killing Alyssa for sexual gratification. They killed Janice because she was a witness to it all. Both were charged and pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder, and both were sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Eric is serving out his life sentence at the Jefferson City Correctional Center, and his wife Angela is she's serving hers out at Chillicothe Correctional Center. Now, I have no pity whatsoever for this Mize couple at all. I mean, what sick fucks they had to be to kill an innocent 8-year-old child for sexual gratification. Well, I mean, really to kill a child at all. But I mean, what's sick? Everyone that knew little Alyssa said that she had a sunny disposition, always happy, and was friends with everybody. And then they killed her mama too. And Alyssa wasn't Janice's only child. Now, Alyssa is survived by a brother that I mentioned earlier and a sister who has several children herself. So this family has been left without daughters, sisters, aunts, granddaughter, and good friends. And I'm sure this tragedy left a big hole in the family and the community that they live in. I really hope that the guilt of what the Muzes did and the sorrow that they caused eats at them for the rest of the time that they have here left on Earth. And the fact that Angela was a co-worker of Janice's is disgusting too. I mean, it was someone that she knew that did this to her and her precious little girl. And I can only imagine what their last minutes alive were like. Alright, y'all. I'm going to stop before I get carried away with what I think about this. I think you have a good idea, though. That's all for tonight. Come back in the morning for the Weekend Weird Files. Have a good evening.